We just started the recording, so let's get started, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is the second webinar in our little series for this program. I'm so glad to have you all here today, and thank you so much for attending. Just to give a little brief introduction, we're gonna really start talking about this program. I have a updated presentation from the last time we had a webinar. We've increased some things, and so we wanted to showcase that here for you all. And then we will just kind of have it be a roundtable, a Q&A type of approach, so we can answer any questions you may have and anything of that sort. So let's get started. This is going to be about our electric school bus grant program. My name is Natalie Buscemi. I'm the Transportation and Innovation Program Manager here at MEA, and I also am the Maryland Clean Cities and Communities Coalition Director as well. So many different hats, but we shall get started. Okay, so a little brief agenda update. So we're going to talk about the grant program overview, some of the requirements of the program, and ineligible projects. We will also talk about the evaluation criteria overview, so you can understand the point system and what that might look like. And then we also have some key grant features, and we will also talk about the application form and what some of the summary tables are going to look like. Okay, so just a little grant program overview. This has $17 million in one-time funding from the Moore Miller administration to advance the Climate Solutions Now Act to purchase and lease these electric school buses that will serve Maryland public school students. So some key details: we have extended the deadline twice now because we've made some changes to the funding opportunity announcement. The deadline is now March 17th, 2025 by 3 p.m. And then some information on eligible applicants and vehicles. In terms of applicants, we are having the local educational agencies apply, and then we also are very cognizant that some school districts do not purchase the buses themselves. So we are also offering the fleets and private vendors that might do that operate on behalf of these LEAs as well, so they can apply. And then eligible vehicles, only the new electric school buses, retrofits or buses funded by other state grants are ineligible. So there is also the MDE program out right now, Maryland Department of the Environment. They have an electric school bus program out right now that is only $3 million for funding and $300,000 per bus. So it could work for that program. You could apply for their program and ours as long as they are different buses. So that is an option as well that you can stack. And then it is a statewide competitive application process as well. Okay, so some program requirements and ineligible projects. So one of the requirements is, it is a strong suggestion, it's not necessarily a requirement, replacing a diesel bus with the new electric school bus. We understand that that may not be something a school district is willing to do at this time, and that is okay. So that's why it is a strong suggestion. And if they are replacing those diesel buses, we would recommend them being model year 2010 or older, or whichever is oldest in the fleet and goes first. So the vehicles have to be domiciled in Maryland for a minimum of 3 years. There will be some data sharing with MEA during those 3 years. It's essentially in the form of a quarterly report, and that essentially just shows the VIN numbers, the make, model, when they went in service, routes, charging usage, anything like that, just so we have a little data from you and for us, so we can have that as well. And then the private vendors that might apply for on behalf of the LEAs, they have to be in good standing with the Maryland State Department of Assessments and Taxation, SDAT for short. And then additionally, those private vendors or fleets provide evidence of a contractual agreement with an LEA, just so we can see that there is that communication happening and the LEA and the vendor knows that that's happening and they're going to work together. In terms of ineligible projects, this is necessarily just to show that we had some prior programs at MEA, one of them being the Clean Fuels Incentive Program, Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Program, or the most recent, the medium duty and heavy duty zero emission grant program. So if they have been funded through any of those programs, they would not be eligible for this one. They would have to be new buses. And then lastly, retroactive funding for already purchased vehicles would be ineligible. Essentially, the whole point is we want to encourage you to apply to this grant, get the funds, and then go out and purchase those buses, chargers, or anything that you and your school district may need. And then in terms of evaluation criteria, we wanted to give you a little insight into what this process is going to look like. Essentially, the goals is to make sure we are having a timely review of your application, make sure it's fair and unbiased. And then also we want to make sure we are looking at school districts that might be in these underserved and overburdened communities, which is very important to us in our agency. So key criteria, the whole total available points is going to be 100. Application quality is going to be 10 points. That essentially is talking about, is the application completed in full? Was there anything missing? Just essentially making sure it's a complete application for us when we do the review. Project cost and funding request. This is in here, and we understand that some school districts may not have an idea of the type of bus they'd want to get. So if they only know the funding request they would want, they don't have necessarily the cost ready for the bus, that is okay. We will work with any school district once they have that ready. We understand that it may not be ready up front. Project benefits and community impact. This is just kind of showing how is this project going to support the greenhouse gas emissions, and how is it going to impact a community? Project planning and schedule. This is another one where we understand that there may not be a maintenance schedule, there may not be a plan set up yet for these buses or chargers. So once again, we will work with the school district if they do not have this ready yet, and how we can help support them through that process. And then project communication and partnerships. So this is in reference to if the school district or the private fleet or vendor, they are working with the utility, working with other community organizations, maybe it be the PTA, anything like that, just so we can see that they are really actively working with these different entities that will support them throughout this whole process. And then project equity, also looking at that, that's always something we want to make sure we are taking into account as well. And then I'll get into some key grant features. So we're going to talk about 3 separate parts. The first part is going to be the award formula highlights. These numbers have been updated. Previously, we were offering up to 85% of the incremental cost covered for the electric buses. Now we're looking at 120%. The maximum award cap has increased from 1.5 million to 3 million per grantee. And then now it's instead of 2 million, it's 3.5 million for eligible applicants. That extra 500,000 could be for school districts that are in overburdened and underserved communities as well. So we offer a little bit more if we find that a school district is located in that type of community. And then the maximum cap on requested charging infrastructure is 30% of the total project funding request. So if you want to get charging, you could offer a request up to 30%, and then that other 70% of funding could be for the buses, it could be for technician training, could be for getting lifts onto the buses. We have those other types of associated costs. And then next to the funding scope, specifically what is the funding going to be including? So that's going to be the buses, charging infrastructure, and like I mentioned, these associated costs. Right now, we have 200,000 for the project startup for EVSE or facility training. This is split into 2 sections. The first 100,000 for this part is specifically for these school districts. And then the other 100,000, like I mentioned, we understand that some private fleets or vendors are the ones that are going to be purchasing the buses. So we have 100,000 for them, and we have it capped at 25,000 for 4 private fleet or vendors in each county school district. So total 200,000. And then we also have 7,200 for technician training. And then we also have about 20,000, 25,000 for getting lifts added to school buses as well. EASE program. Ooh, sorry, I think I went in and out. My apologies. Like I said, this program can be stacked with MDE's program as well, and also other programs as well. Okay, so the last part of the key grant features is reporting requirements. So I kind of mentioned this in a few slides back, but once the buses and or the chargers are purchased and they're being used and in service, we ask for a grantee to submit for reimbursement. And at that time is when they start doing quarterly reports. And this includes some data on mileage, energy use, any issues that they have with the buses or the chargers. We have an outlet so that you can provide any important information to us. Telematics data is encouraged for efficiency purposes for you all, and then also an optional replacement of the diesel buses as well, just to give a little insight into that. Okay, so I'm going to move into the grant application. So we are using a JOT form for this program. And so this is what the link, and Diego, if you could, can you put the link in the chat for everyone in case they want to check it out, get a feel for what it looks like. And so this is what you will use if you want to apply. And there are 2 attachments associated with the application. One attachment is if you're looking to apply for electric school buses. The other attachment is if you're looking for chargers. So this program application is based on entirely what your school district needs. So you apply for whatever you need, and we will be able to work around to try and get whatever funding you might request. And then this is just kind of showing what one of the summary tables looks like. This one is the ESB electric school bus summary table. Just has some different, I know it's very small, I apologize, has some different aspects that we're going to be looking for in terms of kilowatt hours, the vehicle make, model, year, all that different type of information, just so we can kind of see what type of electric school bus you're going to be applying for if you choose to go this route. And then this is kind of giving just a visual aid of all the different types of funding for this program. So everything that I've talked about in the previous slides, just in a nice, pretty little picture for y'all to see. I'm a visual learner, so this helps me understand things. But like I said, 120% incremental cost of the electric school bus here. We have the charging infrastructure, the project startup for EBSE and planning, which could be a variety of different things. This could be for a feasibility study. It could be for hiring someone to actually work on this project and kind of oversee projects in terms of electric school buses and maintaining them. And then we also have $7,200 for school district technician training. And then we also have if some buses need a lifts equipped as well. And this can be stacked with other funding avenues as well. So just to get a little more insight into that. And then that is all I have. There is my email, the transportation email as well. That is pretty much, yes. Okay, yeah, great, thank you. So now we're gonna get right into questions, and I will leave the slides up in case anyone wants me to go back or anything like that. But yes, first question, go ahead.
Can you go, Natalie, 1 page backward, please?
Yes.
Perfect. You did mention that 30% of total project funding, and then I do see for planning up to 200. Is that separate than the 30%?
Yes. So the charging infrastructure is going to be a separate category, and that you can have up to the 30% of total funding request. And then the buses, the facility planning, technician training, and lift equipped would be kind of included in the other 70% of funding that would be requested.
And the reasoning just behind this was that, again, we want really more electric school buses to be adopted, but do reach out to us if the primary concern is charging and that's what you want to really focus on this year. Again, just reach out to us and let us know what your barriers are. But yeah.
Great. And so I'll go to Lonnie next.
Hey, I didn't hear any language about scrapping requirements.
Yes, so scrappage is not a requirement for this program. It is something that we have just not fully integrated yet for this fiscal year.
So you're not actually necessarily replacing an existing bus then?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. And then I will go to Andrea.
Yes, hi Natalie. Thanks for this presentation. I have a question. I think in the beginning of the presentation, a couple of slides in, you talked about the additional priority, not necessarily priority given. I cannot remember your language around applicants who submitted applications to EPA. So,
Yes.
so my question is this, given the current administration's policies and practices around EPA, and I have noticed one of the grants that we submitted for EPA heavy duty, and we were preliminary awarded, Prince George's County Public Schools was preliminary awarded, and we were in communication with the program staff at EPA very early in just providing any additional clarification and information. And then that conversation stopped 2 weeks ago. And there is like silence. So my question is, as you can imagine, how will that still play into this part of the application?
Yes, great question. In our funding opportunity announcement, there is a part in there that says if you apply to the EPA Clean School Bus Grant Program, that would be favorable, and there would be a little bit more award points in terms of the evaluation criteria. And I think there even is a part in the application, the JOT form, where it says to upload your EPA application so we can see kind of what you applied for. In terms of the stacking, and if we will not necessarily accept or kind of work around it, I'm not fully sure because it is still so new, as you all know. We still highly encourage you to, as best to your ability, apply for whatever you think is needed between the difference between the two, or just fully apply for the full $3 million for the school buses for this program. Whatever is going to help meet your need in terms of funding, I would recommend whatever would work. And we can always, I know we've had meetings before, so we can always set up another meeting if you want to discuss that further. I hope that answers your question. I know there's so many uncertainties right now, and whatever you can do, we will work with you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions on any of the slides or anything? Yes. Hi, Fred.
Good morning, Natalie. How are you today?
Good. Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. So, a couple other things. 30% of the funding is only going towards the charger infrastructure. So that is a very expensive part of. So, for those that are on the call, Frederick County Public Schools has 2 electric school buses, and we've had them in service for 3 years. We're in our 3rd year now. So our infrastructure cost to, just to let everybody know, get our 480 pole put in, get our infrastructure in the ground, get our charging dispenser, was around $160. So that is a very costly part of this, and to only cover 30% really kind of pulls it back.
And let me just actually, quick question, Fred, just because I know that we may need to change the verbiage or how this is in line, but typically speaking, if we're looking at like deeper into the grant, it's going to be maybe at around 50,000 per port for a level 3. So just in total, like the 30% really just means that you're going to get upwards of $350,000 of the $3 million. So you could get, roughly 2 level 3 chargers. Maybe you can get level 2s. It's probably going to be more like level 3s. But But that is kind of the question that we had is, depending on how many vehicles you're getting, how many chargers per year are you going to be needing? So that's something that we'll need feedback from you all of, is it a 1-to-1? Is it a 2-to-1? We were thinking it's more of a 2 vehicle to 1 charging station because they're level 3. But again, this is kind of chance to give us feedback. If you're looking at this 100 kW system, we could increase this amount to cover a larger percentage, but yeah, let us know if there's some confusion or feedback around that.
So we currently have DC fast level 2 chargers. We have a 60 kilowatt system with 2 dispensers, and it takes all 4 hours between 9:30 and 1:30 to charge both of those buses in sequential charging, which moving forward we will not be utilizing because it's just not in the best interests to charge our vehicles. Plus some of the other things that maybe some of the other counties are doing, like we're working with Potomac Edison concerning the electrification of buses and the infrastructure. We've been in talks with them for about 2 years. So these are just the kind of things that, and again, the 70% difference too on the bus. So we got a quote because we're going to go out for bid, and we're looking at just what our current spec, a rough estimate is 388 on an electric bus. So, I need to make sure that we have the money to cover the infrastructure costs. And the question is, do you plan to someday utilize a vehicle to grid? Because that's another discussion we're having with our company.
Absolutely. If you have so a couple of different things. So yes, so if you're interested in a vehicle to grid technology, we have an open grants program that fills in the gap for anything that you're looking for. So if you are looking for added software costs, just added costs for the charging stations that this does not cover, just send us we really just want a wish list of what you all are looking for and what is the biggest barriers. Again, going back to the EPA thing, not that we're actually looking for you to get an EPA grant. It's more of a signal to us that you've done your due diligence, the costs, and we know that we're going to pay for the exact amount or the right amount. So again, going back to the vehicles, it should be 120% of the cost, 120% of the incremental cost, meaning it should be 20% cheaper than that diesel. For the level 3 chargers, that's $72,000 per port for a dual, level 3 charger. So, up to $125,000. If there's still going to be some gaps because the vehicle to grid technology is a little bit more expensive, just talk to us and we can get that open grants open for you.
And so one of the other things that you just mentioned is software. So software for the buses is extremely expensive per dispenser. So does the grant cover software for a long period of time? Because it's per bus. To manage state of charge, to manage...
As of right now, the pre-planning portion was our attempt to cover those kind of software costs. So it's like up to 200,000, maybe you use 100,000 for an actual personnel, and maybe, yes, it's probably not going to cover all of the different buses. But again, if there are gaps and maybe software is just kind of lumped into one, we can go ahead and go towards the open grant, which is a little bit different than this one. But again, if we don't know if that is needed unless you let us know, either in the application or email us.
Okay. Thank you.
And 2 quick things before I go to our friends from Nuvve. So I'm just going to leave this up on the screen just so you can all see how much you can get for each of the 3 different type of buses and the chargers as well. So I'm hoping increasing it to the 120,000 makes it a little bit more attractive. and appealing. So I'm going to leave it up in case you just want to look at it as well. But yes, I will go to our friends at Nuvi, who also, Fred, can help you with vehicle to grid solutions as well. So go ahead, Ra, you're good.
I had a two question. I think Andrea was kind of highlighting a little bit. I think everybody's little, what's the good word I want to use here? All of us, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 90 days. And if a school district has been awarded funding for EPA round 3 and have not received order disbursement, and your application closes on March 17th, can they probably, and there's only 3 million max, could they probably start applying for infrastructure and charging to at least start that part, and hopefully with the funding with the EPA, they can also get that when the time, happens. And I think that will be, I'm hoping it's all positive stuff in the next 90 days, but it's everybody do not know at this moment, but we all know the infrastructure part takes a while.
Yes, definitely. That is something that we would encourage, at least so you have a little bit here, a little bit there. That's definitely something that we would want. And we also know that there's a lot of uncertainty. So, and there is now, it's 3 million per grantee. So whatever is going to get the most for each school district, that's what we want. And we will work with you. If we see that we need maybe a little bit more funding for one school district or something like that when we're doing the evaluation of all these applications, that's something that we can also work with as well with each grantee. It just depends on how many applications we get. But there is 17 million for this program. So we want to utilize as much of that as we can, because that is a good chunk of money. We want to use it for sure. Lonnie.
I have one more question. I'm sorry, Lonnie. I know with your funding and there's no minimum requirement for
Oh no.
Uh-oh. She'll be back. I've got her own other stuff. I can tell her she died.
Oh, you're back.
Did you hear my question? I'm sorry. I lost you for a second.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
I said, is there, or are you guys considering a minimum software subscription?
So that's not something that we have in the program right now. It could be something, but it's not something we have in there. But like Diego mentioned, that could be a part of the EVSC startup / planning cost, the 200,000, 100,000 per school district. So that could be associated with that as well. That's kind of the lovely thing about this program, is it's kind of broad in a sense that it can fit into different parts of funding. So that could be associated with that 100,000. If there is a need, we can squeeze it in there and kind of make that work for school districts for sure. Lonnie, go ahead.
Okay. First off, I'd like to say great job. This is, we look at these all the time and this is really well thought out. You've done a great job. One small comment, the 30%, once I realized that it was off the total, that takes a pretty big chunk out of the infrastructure. Initially, I saw 30% and thought, oh, it's just 30% of the amount that you want for just the infrastructure. I had a real quick question. You may have already answered it, but if a school already has an electric bus and they have a level 2 charger and they want to upgrade to a level 3, can they use this program for that?
That's something that we would probably recommend, yes, because we understand that sometimes the level 2 chargers are not necessarily what they need in the end, and they do need that level 3 because, like Fred said from Frederick County Public Schools, even in that 4 hours, it takes all that time just to do it. So that is something that we would be interested in and we would be open to. Yes.
Okay. And another reason, level 2 does meet the requirements of probably like 70% of what's out there, but Maryland is now at the lead of the country in V2G. So we need to be thinking down the road, getting stuff in the ground that's going to support that, because your state will be at the head of the pack so far as getting that done.
Not to be a distraction as well, but just an addition, just to clue in, folks, of there's a lot more funding kind of behind the scenes as well, besides this. If there is a need for medium or heavy duty vehicles as well, more of like step vans or more of like different types of vehicles that would use level 2, but they're not buses. There might be some medium heavy duty vehicle grant funding that we can pull. There might be some other like community EVSE charging if you're trying to work with others and kind of do like opportunity charging as well. So bring us, some really good ideas. The V2G was such a great, comment. So, we just designed a program to try and incentivize as many electric buses, but we know that there's a lot more to the challenge. So just let us know.
So I'm going to go, and then I'll go to you, Dorothy. I'm going to go I see Michael, you mentioned, would MEA consider using this funding to put chargers in place around Maryland to support buses traveling between counties for field trips or at private repair shops? I would say yes, that would be a lovely idea, and we would definitely encourage you to reach out to us if you want to discuss further, but that would be a great part of funding that could be used for this, for sure.
Yeah,
Love
I
that
just
idea.
wanted to, I was going to add, there's only a couple major large like bus repair facilities, and everybody travels up to Baltimore to Middleton and Meade or Herman Bourne, but they don't have chargers. They actually reached out to us and said, hey, we have a customer here on an electric bus. Can we use your charger? And, but the ones that we have aren't really compatible for that. But the infrastructure, I think, needs to be spread out a little bit around the state, even for like buses going to zoos or going to the Eastern Shore. If the state could have a central, or like a database, like, hey, we have chargers here, we use ChargePoint, you can sign up or whatever. I think that's something that would be helpful, and you guys could use the money in that way. But that was just a thought.
Okay, so
I think that's a great idea. Let's reach out further and discuss that, because I love that concept. That would be a great way to support field trips and all of that. Yeah. So let's see. I think let's go to Dorothy. Yes.
Thanks, Natalie. Hi, everyone. I see my colleagues on here at Kiva, so I'm gonna say this hypothetically speaking. So Kiva, don't throw anything at me. I'm not saying this is the situation, but in the event that we applied for, say we applied to get more buses, right? So that's a category we applied for. And then we realized that, well, we're getting some money from EPA. And we decide, okay, well, instead of getting additional buses, since we now know we're going to be getting, funds from EPA, can we now use it for the charging infrastructure versus the bus? Is that allowed or no?
Yes. So that's something that we can definitely be flexible about, because we understand that you may not know when you're getting that EPA funding quite yet, when this deadline for this program closes, or even a little bit after. So that's something that we are definitely open to doing, especially if we don't have too many applications.
Right.
We have a little bit more flexibility to do so.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Let's go to you, John. Nice to see you.
Yes, hi, Natalie. How are you?
Good
Yeah,
having you.
I'm from Frederick County, and I was interested in the comments that Fred made. And looking at this from just a citizen's point of view, I had a few questions to run through. If you could give us some background. Are these buses? What players are the major manufacturers? Are they U.S. Based? So that might be of interest to citizens. I got a gas and diesel mileage of about 7 to 8 miles per gallon for what I did on research to the average bus. And I know that a lot of you folks have experience, particularly Fred, and I know I had corresponded with Paul before. I wondered about compatibility of chargers across the fleet and the advantage of having redundancy. When you're starting out, you have only 2 buses, for example, you have very little redundancy, and you're just a lot more, I would think, a lot more vulnerable to problems. Is there a way to charge a bus that runs out of power if it's on a school bus run? would you have a vehicle that has a charger or a portable charger that you could help with a problem? I think that a lot of the issues are the same kinds of issues that people are running into with, just who are adopting EVs. And it's, there's a certain amount of stress and patience and perseverance is necessary to implement this new technology. We've been burning gasoline and diesel vehicles for over 100 years, and it's not going to change that easily. So it's going to take some sacrifice. And then about heating and air conditioning, how much does that draw down your battery? And do these buses have braking like our typical EV vehicles and passenger vehicles? Do they have regeneration of electricity on braking? Because one of the things that I've learned about that is that EV vehicles get a lot better mileage when there's a lot of braking. So that would be a plus for buses. And I'd like to hear if any of the folks from Frederick County have any comments on that, on those factors. Oh, and one last thing, I didn't find any record or any place where it gave an estimate of the electric school bus mileage per kilowatt hour. And right now, in our county, our price per kilowatt hour is less than 10 cents, I believe, last time I looked. So it's quite inexpensive. When you're charging at home, you're getting about 2 miles to a kilowatt hour or more if you're depending on whether you have a car or a larger vehicle. When you have a 10 cent per kilowatt hour, that compares very favorably with the cost of fuel, which, by the way, if anyone's used public charging is like 50 cents a kilowatt hour. So anyway, so there's a couple of questions about the sort of the field conditions of adopting electric school buses and the practical challenges thereof.
Okay, great. Thank you, John. There are actually some folks have been, thank you, Lonnie and Diego, have been responding. So I'm gonna kind of draw back to those real quick. In terms of the main manufacturers that are being used for electric school buses, it's Bluebird, Lion, I believe Intercontinental, and BYD. Those are the few main ones that I have heard of. Oh, yes, Jeffrey.
So Lion and BYD are not approved in Maryland to be sold because they don't meet our specifications. Lion's also in a bankruptcy situation. They've had to close their plant down in Illinois. They have a lot of issues, so just keep that in mind. BYD only has a plant in California right now. They're looking at options out here, but they don't at this time have a plant out on the East Coast, which is definitely a issue for them trying to transport vehicles all the way from California. Because one of the big issues with the manufacturers is they can't drive their vehicles like the normal diesel and gas buses from the plants to the locations. They have to put them on flatbed trucks to then burn diesel fuel all the way here to transport them, across the country from the plant. So that's some of the drawbacks that are going on. So I just want to make sure that was clear that BYD and Lion are not approved right now for Maryland. The only the basic big three are Thomas, Bluebird, and IC. And definitely the counties that are on here that have some of them, they can talk about the challenges that they've seen with the buses and the infrastructure.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, actually, very much. So Jaron, there you go. Those are the questions about the different types of manufacturers. And then in terms of miles per gallon equivalent, Lonnie said it's about 24 miles for electric school bus. And then in terms of brakes, it extends the brake life immensely. And then Lonnie and Diego, if you wanted to add anything else, that would be helpful. I'm just trying to go through the chat, make sure I'm not
Just
missing
real
anything.
quick thumb rules are about a 50% savings in fuel and an 80% savings in maintenance. Those are pretty consistent thumb rules that you can use.
Just one of the last things that I'll highlight, because these are all really great questions, really preliminary questions that I wanted to just highlight. We can connect you with NREL. They should still be having their EV advising or free advising for school bus planning. There's also some other resources for kind of understanding performance. That's why the feasibility study is also, heavily funded here. And just to that point as well, if you're really needing more time for this feasibility study to be created, again, I think Natalie mentioned it before, go ahead and apply for the full 3 million, get this through this feasibility study. You might find out some really different information, and we can always change that grant depending on that really precise feedback. So just continue working with us.
Fred, and then we can go back to John if you want anything else.
Good morning, John. It's Fred. How are you today?
Hi, Fred. Nice to hear you.
So, over the past 3 years, just real quick. So we're getting about 1% per mile. Once you start putting the heat on and the air conditioning on, you get a significant drop in battery life. We're also in cold temperatures, battery drainage is a bit different. So this past week when the temperatures were extremely cold, John, one of our buses, we only have 2, one of them's in the shop. The other one was not operational due to the cold temperatures. Okay.
Wow.
So when you turn the bus on, this cool little turtle came on and said that the batteries are too cold. So we couldn't utilize the bus that morning. So I do want to share, John, that, and with everybody on the call, and I know Mike's on there too from Baltimore. We went in this 3 years ago, John, because we wanted to get involved in electric school buses. We wanted to try them out. We wanted to take baby steps as with anything new to see how it works out. So, and I encourage everyone to take baby steps. As technology changes, as the bus manufacturers develop and upgrade the buses, things will improve over time. So, have we had issues, John, with the buses? Yes. So for the first year, John, 10 months in the school year, 4 months out of the 10, the bus was out of service, both of them.
Wow.
Second year, John, we've had some charging issues. We've had some from the dispenser parts and also from the school bus parts. We just had the buses upgraded to vehicle to grid this past summer. And when the buses came back, they couldn't charge with our dispensers. So we had to get the manufacturer to get our dispensers upgraded.
Mm-hmm.
Both of our buses, John, during this school year died on the route. And thank God they will be able to start back up and brought back. One of the buses is still at the vendor since November, waiting for a part. A very crucial part, John, because it has to do with the shifting of the bus. So without that part, our bus can't go into gear. So there's some other little points that we've kept, but again, this is something that we're going to continue to do. We're going to continue to, John, as Natalie said earlier, MDE's got a grant out. I talked to Tim Shepard from MDE all the time, and our grants will be sent in. Everything's done, John, for that. For the buses there. Currently, some of the conversation that you've heard earlier about upgrading your level 2 to level 3. We've reached out to the company that makes our chargers to see if we can do that, since we have sequential charging with this unit. We could add 2 dispensers, so we're looking into upgrading. Maybe the guts could be upgraded, John, at a low cost. So there's just a number of things going on with it. I think we're all kind of trying. We're all trying technology. We understand the vision, but you're still gonna need to have some diesel buses in your fleet because the range just isn't there, John. We cannot buy an electric school bus and service our special ed students because we go all day. Our special ed routes here, John and Frederick, go all day. They have an AM, a midday, sometimes 2 middays, and a PM route. There's just not enough time in between the charge. So
And just on
Right.
that, Fred, just to clue in again, back to the open grants, if there's a need for biodiesel, propane, hydrogen, if there's a desire for alternative fuels, because again, electric might be a gap, that's what our open grants is for. We want to hear from you all of, hey, we've done the feasibility study, or we're looking to do a feasibility study. We know that there's going to be a large amount of routes that can be electric, but there might be some that we need to look for alternative fuels. And again, that's what the open grant is for. So still connect with us on some of these other ideas.
I think there's just one more thing that the state leaves to the LEA, which is, our operational situations. Not every LEA has a garage, mechanics, upgrading our facilities. One thing that Diego just said was about going to propane. We looked at propane with the VW settlement money. Our shop isn't there for the utilize of propane vehicles. We don't, so those are the other things too, John, that you have to look at when you're thinking about these things. Yes, on paper it sounds great. Yes, as you're going to save some money on maintenance costs, less parts, fuel, but we're also here to provide reliable transportation services to the students of the state of Maryland. We have to get them to school so they can start their educational day.
Right.
But-
And I certainly appreciate that. And actually, I just wanted to say, I appreciate the efforts that you've been taking. And I'm becoming educated on exactly what the lift is to do this. And I just wanted to say that that I think it's outstanding to keep working at this. And I think it's a nut we can crack eventually. Because of course, I don't need to tell any of you the amount of diesel that we can save if we can start to gradually transition over to the electric as possible. I mean, I know it's going to take a lot of like maneuvering, like maybe you have to live with some of the restrictions or some of the limitations, I should say. I hope that in 3 years, the vendors that have these buses, and this is a nascent industry, I guess, doing electric buses, but it's, I guess, as all the folks we're talking to here would be considered early adopters. And so the early adopters are just as important as the people building these things because you give the feedback. But I really hope that perhaps implementing from level 2 to level 3 will help. I think it's extending the size of that small fleet would probably help for some redundancy. I hope that if it's not necessary to scrap a diesel that's getting close, maybe could be held, maybe could be scheduled to be replaced in 2 years or 1 or 2 years, so that you didn't have as much. You had some built-in redundancy on the level of buses available to these routes, and perhaps. And this is, but I want to make sure that I'm clear. I understand this is difficult for the administrators and for the folks who are actually doing this. So that's something. So I just. This grant, which is so attractive, I think, just when I pencil it out, would kind of move the ball forward, and in some way, whichever way works best for the current circumstances in Frederick County. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate that. And thank you, Fred, for your input as well. And just to give a little more insight, the MDE program is only for buses. So that's where hopefully, as we're trying, to try and make it more attractive, that this could help try and fill in those gaps. And like I said, a lot of different parts of this program could be very flexible to whatever your needs are. So, I encourage all the ones that have spoken up in the chat or just, off mute, please, reach out to us. We are here, and we want to be, another contact for you all. So we're just starting out in this, but we're really here to help you in any way. So I think I saw a few hands. I saw Lonnie and I saw Claire. So I guess Lonnie or Claire, would you like to go first? I don't really mind who, just want to make sure you're heard.
Yeah, Lonnie, go ahead.
Oh, it's quick. The other state funding, the $3 million pot, that deadline is this week. Any hopes that can be extended?
So thank you, Lonnie, for that. I have been, and Fred, I know you mentioned Tim Shepard from MDE. I'm pretty sure that deadline is set. So I do not think at this time that they are looking to extend it, unfortunately. Just for everyone on the call.
What was that one called again?
That is, it's Maryland Department of the Environment. It's their electric school bus program. I'm not sure it has a specific type of name, but it is only for it's only for buses. Does not include chargers, technician training, anything of that sort. And it's a max 300,000 for a school bus. Fred, go ahead.
Hey, Lonnie, it's called the Maryland Zero Emission School Bus Proposal.
Thank you.
Maryland Zero Emission School Bus Proposal. And you can go to figures. I think I might have saved it here. If you want to go to the if you want to go to the application, go to the MDE Maryland.gov programs air mobile sources. And then when you go to mobile sources, you'll see the electric school bus grant program.
Okay, I think I found it before, but it was a bit of a torturous path to get there.
And also there is some more money from MDE, which will be coming out shortly.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes, they have more money from the VW settlement that'll be coming out.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that's only for buses as well, not for anything else.
Correct.
No, thanks.
Yep.
Correct. And
So-
with the MDE one, you gotta scrap the buses.
Right. If it's VW, definitely. Yeah.
And even this one, even the one that they currently have that closes on the 7th, you've got to scrap the buses.
Okay.
And I will quickly go to Grace because I see you're from MDE. So if you want to add anything, please feel free to do so real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just going to say that if you're worried about the deadline, you are definitely welcome to email one of us, and I'll drop my email and Tim Shepard's email in the chat. Just so that way, like, if you're worried about the deadline, we can definitely work with you and work on trying to get you money because that's important. And if you have any other questions, let us know. But we do have it's just for school buses. We just released money for EV infrastructure charging, but that's more like making Maryland mobile, like your personal cars and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Grace. I appreciate that insight. That's very helpful. So I want to go to Claire. I'm so sorry that you had to wait a little bit. We got into it.
No, it's totally fine. Yeah, I was just going to add, I think, onto what other folks are saying about kind of extending battery life or just even maintaining battery life in really hot and really cold situations. And I was just going to say that, one of the things that we've tried to implement with some of our projects is on really cold days, just turning the bus on before it goes out on its route while it's still plugged in. And then that way you can heat up the cabin of the bus. And you're not wasting charge. I will say that hot weather in our experience has a lot more impact on the battery than cold weather does. But those are just kind of things that we're learning as we go. So I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Claire. I appreciate that little note. Jeffrey, go ahead.
So I was just curious. I mean, one thing I was going to comment on the heating thing. So one thing with some of the manufacturers up north, they're putting on diesel fuel heaters, diesel powered heaters on their electric buses. in order to have heat during the winter time. So I know when we had a Lion bus demonstration, they had a diesel fuel heater on the bus. So it had a tailpipe still. I don't know what MDE's stance on that is. And then also, for curiosity, what, with your reporting requirements, what have you guys learned so far from, I mean, we are one of the leaders in the country with electric buses. So we have, over 200 in Montgomery County, Baltimore County has some, PG has some, and they've had a lot of issues from what they're telling their other directors. So what have you guys learned about the process and the problems and the challenges?
Yeah, so Diego and I, we can kind of tag team this. There have been a lot, and we've been working specifically with Prince George's County, Kiva Baldwin and his team, to kind of see the different challenges, and we also work with Baltimore City as well. And it's pretty much the same, I would say, overall, in terms of the chargers, finding issues with the training as well. Sometimes I've heard the OEM will train the school district technicians on a very brief, high-level type of aspect in terms of the EV or electric school bus itself, but the buses will actually be worked on by the manufacturer. That was news to me. I wasn't sure how that technician training process would go, so it was actually very eye-opening to me. But there's a lot. I mean, Diego, what else have you heard that you want to bring into the and other school districts as well on this call? Please feel free to hop in as well. I feel like it's an evolving process, and I'm hearing something new pretty much every week. Like Fred, that was very helpful. If he's still on the call, that was very helpful to learn more about their process as well. I hope that helps, Jeffrey. I'm still learning a lot and trying to kind of see where the needs are and how I can meet those. But yeah, it's evolving very fast.
Yeah, I would say the exact same, Natalie. And just to what we can do. This is where Clean Cities is a really big highlight. We can follow back up with you and give you a lot more information and reports that we had to send in. But the top three again and challenges have already been mentioned. What are the rates? What are the utility rates? So making sure that you've connected with your utilities might be your first step for your for your plan. And we can help with that. The second is kind of getting a routes and getting which vehicles are best. So that's where, again, software was mentioned, telematics. Again, we can help with that. And then, also a charging schedule and just making sure the maintenance plan is up to date. Some people mentioned also just not having, garages. So, design of every single one is going to have a different kind of design. And so we can share some general best practices through the Clean Cities, but work with us, let us know. Again, we have some other kinds of resources that we can bring in and bring in some technical analysis that not only looks at, again, electrification, but we want to look at propane, we want to look at alternative fuels, and if that's what's needed as well. So we'll send you out some best practices as well.
Fred, go ahead.
So one of the other things is to make sure is when you do your bus bid is to, price in the longest warranty available. So our buses, our batteries are warranted up to 8 years, and our body and chassis are 5. So that is something that we made sure that we did. And in the maintenance process, we handle all the things we can do that are wearables, that our shop can do. Anything else gets down to the vendor, and they handle anything that has to do with the electrification issues, batteries, things of that nature, because we're just not equipped for that, as I said earlier.
Exactly. That's what I've heard as well, Fred. Thank you for that input. I appreciate that. Let's see. Dorothy.
Yeah, it's me again. So my question really is more a curiosity question, and obviously we appreciate the funding that's coming through from both MDE and MEA. But just curious to know, what's the source of your funding? Is it coming from the state general fund, or is it coming from a program, say like, for example, the Volkswagen settlement or C funds, or is it coming from the federal government, like as a pass-through or formula type of appropriations? Just curious.
Yes, so this is coming, it's coming, like I think I had in one of the slides, from the Moore Mill administration through the CEF funds.
So it is CIF funds, okay.
Yes,
Thank
it is. Not federal, thankfully.
And
Good.
and it's even like a more specialty fund,
Right,
so
Yeah.
that we have even like kind of some more flexibility with it.
yeah,
So again, that's why we're really wanting more feedback.
right.
I didn't mention solar canopies or anything other, kinds of interesting projects, and I don't want to influence too much. And I really want to hear from you all. What are you all really needing? This funding is a little bit more flexible, so let's design it, as best we can.
Yeah, that's good to know. And that's very reassuring.
And that's why, and then I'll go to our next question. That's why I highly encourage you to apply, even, if you're not fully sure, just apply. It's better to apply than not, honestly, and we can just work with you. I'll continue to say that because that's all I really want. All right, we can go to our next question now from Nuvi.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Dorothy.
Diego, did I hear different solution? Are you thinking about possibility if a school is interested in doing like battery storage, maybe with vehicle to grid?
Yeah, so that's Brandon's team,
Awesome.
and that's a whole other grant program that, again, just send us a wish list, just like Natalie said, send us a wish list. We can kind of piece together what will work. Their team wants solar canopy projects. We want chargers, so we will work together on what that kind of looks like.
So kind of working the best solution where a school district can definitely utilize all these different resources, from solar to buses that have V2G capability to storage, all of that. Okay.
And then just one last thing as well, just again, to note, because I mentioned utilities, we again would want to encourage you to also look at the rebates, grants that potentially would come from BG&E, Pepco. We would want to stack, with them and ensure again that you get demand rates taken care of. So again, we know that this is a long process. So let's just, let's work together.
Awesome. Let's go to Lonnie.
Just a real quick, when you say solar canopy projects, I assume you mean microgrid projects?
Yes,
That's exactly it.
Okay, because they're not all canopies. That's the only reason I said that. Got it.
correct. Yes. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions while we're all here? This has been very, very helpful and enlightening. So thank you so much. We appreciate any and all feedback. And this is also being recorded, so we will post this on our website as well. If anyone wants to kind of watch this again and see if they missed anything, so there will be that chance as well. Yes, Fred.
Could you email to us the breakdown that's on the screen?
Yes, like for the buses, chargers, and everything else.
Yep, the breakdown would be nice. Thank you very
Yes.
much, Natalie.
You are very welcome, Fred. I'm very, 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 very happy you could come. Yes, so I will also be sending after this a little follow-up with not only the FOA, but also send a little breakdown of all the costs and the funding as well. So you all have that. So yeah, okay. If there is no other questions or any comments, we are so grateful that you could all make it here today. And thank you for your input. And we will be sending out an email with more information later. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day and week, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
too.
you.
You too.
Everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.